What are you doing? Awesome. Of course, we got.
The comic dads.
I mean, yes, that's of course why you guys are all sitting in this room right now, obviously. Of course, we got Keith Tucker, Gary Martin, some amazing illustrators and artists, and we're really lucky to have them here with us today.
Yeah, they're
You guys want to go ahead for maybe some of the people that don't know exactly some of the work you guys have done, and just tell a little bit about your experience in the industry.
You go first.
Okay. I'm probably best known as an ink artist. I specialize in inking, but I've done writing and drawing as well. I have a book out, a how-to book called The Art of Comic Book Inking, and it goes from this is a brush, this is an ink, all the way to showing advanced techniques. And I've been doing that for plus 20 years. I worked for Marvel, DC, and Disney, and Dark Horse, and Archie Comics, and pretty much everybody. Right now, I am doing a monthly comic strip for American Legion magazine. It's the magazine that promotes veteran affairs. It's telling the history of the American Legion, which started around World War I, looking out after World War I vets. They do amazing work, and the comic strip is like an old-fashioned, it's like a full page in the magazine, so it's not really a strip, that's what we call it. And it's a continuing story of the Legion's history. Do lots of commissions and shows and things like that, and every once in a while I'll do comic book work like Mega Man or Sonic, that kind of thing. And Keith and I have a history. We worked together when we worked at Disney, and I took a lot of his work.
Yeah, I think almost all of it. Could be. I'm pretty sure. I did covers for Roger Rabbit comics at Eating. In fact, there were a couple of times that we weren't allowed to sign there, but I did put little billboards up on buildings that said, KTGM Radio.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually remember those little billboards, and that makes a lot of sense realizing what that means now.
they even, our editor, David Sedman, called me on it. Hey, Keith, I know what you did there. I went, is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. I'm just calling you on it.
Yeah, I used to sneak stuff in backgrounds, like characters from other companies, Pogo, and just a lot of non-Disney characters, like in the background waving, and he would say, "Hey, I saw what you did. I loved it, but don't do it again."
They can get sued.
Nobody likes a lawsuit.
And there was also Roger Rabbit, Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, we did a lot of rescue.
Yeah, well,
Did you guys do all the TV show and the movies, or just the?
I worked on the TV show, but I didn't work on the movie Roger Rabbit.
I'm sorry.
But, yeah, no, I love Roger Rabbit, the movie, but I was thrilled to have fun drawing the covers, you know, with that energetic bunny. And some of the other things should I continue now?
Yes.
Or was that my segue?
No.
That was a ramp right there.
I'm done talking. Yeah, I worked on things you guys might have heard of, Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, DuckTales, you know, all the show stuff.
Did a lot of that work from prison.
Oh, yeah, they had us locked up in these little cubicles.
Were you guys cellmates?
That's another panel.
Oh, that's the 3 o'clock. Sorry, guys. My timing's way off.
You're in the Disney Channel. No, they just had it. They had us in little offices that were individual. You have your own office. Did you ever see the movie Brazil? Anybody? The size of those offices is very similar.
So you basically like a schoolhouse desk, and that's all, like, pretty much what you got right there.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of fun though. I mean, I remember one time getting, you know, they had a call. We all had it on the phone. You know, wired to the wall. And there was like, somebody called in and wanted to know about how to do animation. Does anybody want to take the call? And I was on downtime, and I figured, oh yeah, sure. And this guy wanted to know how to do animation, because he had this little idea for a show that became The Simpsons.
What?
And yeah, Matt, and someday, you know, I'm going to be able to tell if I ever meet him. Be able to say, hey, remember when you called Disney and wanted to know how things were done in the production to do a cartoon? And who you talked to was me.
See, you should be featured on The Simpsons now just because of that.
And then before that, worked on shows like G.I. Joe, Transformers, X-Men, Spider-Man. So it's sort of like to have a good long career in animation, you have to wear two hats. And that being comedy and action adventure. Because things seem to run in 5-year cycles. Action became for about it was literally about 5 years. And then it would gradually change to all comedy and then action come back in. And throughout my career, that's how it looked. And so, yeah, and then I worked on a couple of films before that. Conan, the first movie, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Conan, and John Carpenter's The Thing. As a special effects artist, before computers, it's all hand-drawn animation. That's a little bit.
Just a little bit. Do you guys have any like preferred characters that you really enjoy drawing or inking, or characters that you just anytime you get a commission for it, you actually get like really stoked? You're like, yes, I love this, and I know I can pop this out and make it look great.
Any character that has lots of black. Okay, I'm done.
Well, he does a lot of dramatic lighting. You know, his inking is just really, things pop.
We're not gonna get the big paintbrush out.
Do it all in a couple swipes and done.
Cha-ching.
I'm kind of keen on these little mice guys.
Well, we're fans, you know, we read comics and watched the cartoons and stuff, so anything that, you know, from our past, big thrill for me. My story of how I started working for Disney, Lin Wein was the big shot, and I had worked for him at DC when he was an editor at DC. And I heard that Disney was starting a comic book company. How long ago was this?
It was the early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, in the 90s.
94,
So a long time ago.
3.
So I had done some work for DC, and I knew Lynn, and he was put out a word that he was looking for illustrators to illustrate Disney comics. Oh, that's cool, I know Lynn. So I called him up, and he said, we have a Chip and Dale copy that we turned around right away. It was the first one.
Oh,
I don't
what the
remember.
way? Oh, no, I didn't
remember
do
who
that.
did it. It wasn't you.
Yeah, I didn't do it till 4.
So they said, we need this turned around right away. And that was the FedEx days. So they had to ship me the pencil art by FedEx, do it as fast as I can, ship it back to them by FedEx. And it just so happened that the FedEx driver delivered the page of pencil art in the morning. He always comes in the afternoon. For some reason, he came in the morning. So I was able to ink the cover and ship it back the same day, that afternoon. And when Lynn Weed got it the next day, he went nuts and said, oh, yeah, not only so we're good, but you turn it around in record time. So we have all these titles that we need inkers on. pick one. So he starts saying, you know, Chip and Dale, Roger Rabbit, Goofy, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, stop. So I got to ink the Mickey Mouse comic book. I did about, I don't know, 20 issues. And that was a big thrill. I mean, come on, Mickey. That was a big thrill. So that, you know, so we're geeks, you know, we like this stuff. And that's why we're in this.
Did you ink the Autumn Adventures #1 cover that I did? You know, it's like they're all at a picnic and there's a double page spread.
No.
Was it you?
You guys probably do a ton of like crossover work that you guys have done, probably on like different, I mean, everything from Disney to all over the place. Is there anything that you guys have done together that you guys feel like, okay, that's probably our best piece that we've done?
Well, just that we did a lot of covers.
Yeah, a couple of
And-
years.
And a cover, you can't just hack it out like some of the interior pages. You've gotta, you know, you've gotta make an effort, you've gotta put yourself into it. And so every cover, I think, my favorite though was the one, Roger Rabbit being erased with a paintbrush. And the way you drew it, it was very three-dimensional. The composition was brilliant.
I don't think I did that.
You did it.
Race with the
No, it was like, it was, I think it was with a pencil or a paintbrush, it was full figure, and there was like parts of them were just.
Yeah, I didn't do that. I think
All this time,
Rick
Why,
Hobart.
Rod, you did that.
Rick
Been
Hobart.
crediting
All
you
this
for
time.
years.
Oh, yeah, I hated that one.
It wasn't me.
But some of the Roger Rabbit covers you did, I liked a lot.
Oh, yeah, the gumshoe one with him in the
Yes.
spotlight with the KTGM radio. And, or the busting out. That was my first one.
Don't say busting when you're talking about Roger Rabbit. He got it.
I was there, I picked up the pieces.
I didn't get it.
It'll come to you, I swear it will.
See, she got it.
I think now's a good time to kind of open it up to you guys. Anybody have any questions for Gary or Keith?
I have one for Keith. How long did you work on the X-Men?
It was on and off for years. I mean, I worked on a whole bunch of episodes. I mean, there were a lot of them.
That was an ongoing season.
Yeah, it went on for a while.
If you could pick your favorite episode, what episode?
That is not easy, but well, there was Xavier Remembers was one. I really had a good time with. But there was another one where they were in Hawaii, and I was living on the Big Island at the time doing the work freelance, and they had one where the characters actually went to where I was living, and was like I played out where they were.
We're so realistic.
Yeah, I think that I knew the writers and they knew me to be there, so it may have had some influence, but I can't remember which one that was. And then was the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse in the first season, I think. And I think there was one I did with Apocalypse again, where we did stuff that was a part of the movie. Days of Future Past, I think. Yeah, where they actually drew upon some of the stuff that we did and did it pretty well. And, but I can't pick one. I mean, there's like these ones with Magneto and Professor X in the Savage Land, and there were these little mini episodes that we would do as part of you do a story for one, and then there'd be this little part that were cut together into its own episode, but there were little vignette stories. And that was kind of fun, you know, dinosaurs and Sauron, that guy with a big beak. He was all beaky-like. He wasn't beaker.
He was not.
Nobody was beaker.
Nobody is. Any other questions, guys?
Are you gonna be a part of the new Animaniacs?
I'm like officially retired from a union job where I took pension money and stuff, and, you know, insurance, all those kind of things that are like for my wife and I. And, you know, they would actually, the way it works is that I would get half the money for the job. And, I mean, they would have to pay me a whole lot more money to make up for how much I would lose. And there were some complications about the insurance. It's like, if you come out of retirement, what are it's like I'd have to talk to the business rep to find out how to do it, and if it was even gonna happen, and if they did it on computer on a Cintiq. I really don't want to do that. I'd rather work on paper, because if you do a show like using Toon Boom is the program which I did Henry Huggle Monster on a few episodes of that. I finally after 3 said no more. You'd end up 5 or 6 characters in a scene, and even when you're roughing, you have to save that file and that file on every scene and every situation. If you get 5 characters and you gotta label your background, I
So
mean,
it won't be a layered process where you have to layer each character
Yeah,
onto it,
it's
instead of just being
layers.
able to just draw it out and have it done.
and even for your roughs, you have to go through all that process to the point where you're locked in, because you're spending so much time. I find it counterintuitive, at least for me, as a way to do film. I like to just, I love working on post-its, and if I didn't like it, animate a bunch of stuff and a layer of post-its and get it figured out, spread them out on panels, and then I've got it, then I'll do the finals. But the way they've got it now, you have to do so much work up front that you're locked in. And they don't want you to do as much 3/4 perspective animation that we used to do. There's just less competition now, so the budgets have been cut, and the networks were not used to, they weren't owned by any specific studio, couldn't own their own network, that they all had to compete. Like Disney had to compete with Marvel or Filmation or Hanna-Barbera to get a show on the air. Well, once they changed the law, politics matter, Disney said, I'll buy that, ABC, fine. They tear up the contract with, who did Pennsylvania, DreamWorks. They did 1 season of DreamWorks, and they didn't renew it because Disney said, well, we own it now, and we've got our own studio, we don't need you, so fulfill the contract, bye. That was the end of Pennsylvania.
So was that a yes or a no for a question?
What was the question? I got you.
It was a no, I thought that.
I mean, you never say never, but you never know. I mean, if somebody wanted to cut a fun deal.
There's
then
enough
it could
dollars
work.
to zeros at the end.
It's complicated.
Is there any work that you guys have done in the past that you would want to do again? Like if somebody, the second somebody wanted to.
Everything.
Everything, all of it.
Make it better. No, I mean, as artists, we're perfectionists. If you look at the kind of inking details that this guy could see where you wanna do more youth, like, you're fantastic.
If I could choose one, when I first started working in comics, I grew up in California. At that time, everything was happening in New York.
Yeah, me
Marvel
too.
and DC Comics were in New York. It was before FedEx. It was, before the internet. So you had to live in the city where the company was.
Literally.
Go into the office. And so I moved to New York and apprenticed for different. And back then, DC had a bunch of mystery titles like Ghosts, House of Mystery, House of Secrets.
They just picked up like a 9.2 House of Mystery.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's like all priced off. And
Yeah,
I'm
there's
guessing there,
some
so-
amazing work in there, but there's also a lot of amazing work, but there's also a lot of junk because they gave those assignments to new people.
It's a training.
Exactly. They wouldn't give, Superman to some greenhorn like me. They would give me some ghost story, that kind of thing. And admittedly, I did not have a clue. I did not know what I was doing. It was all, on-the-job training. And they gave me a Steve Ditko story to ink. Steve Ditko was the very first artist who worked on Spider-Man. He still is a legend. And
Will always
back
be.
then, he was a legend. So here I am, this punk kid from California, supposed to ink Steve Ditko, and I knew I was in over my head. So when I look at that stuff now, somebody like at a show brings me a comic, have me sign it, it's painful to look at. So if you, go back far and have any of those comics that I inked, I actually inked 3 of his stories,
Wow.
and I would love to do it again.
Just from where you've like grown and learned, and you're like, give me another shot at this. Give me the same
I don't
comic.
know
Let me
what they
retry
were
this.
thinking, giving that stuff to me. I don't know. It was super cool at the time. If I would have known what I was doing, I wouldn't have touched it. I would have said, no, I can't. Yeah, that'd be cool.
You didn't know enough to know what you didn't know.
That's very fair. What about for you? Is there any characters that you want to go back and fix, or anything you would change about any past characters?
You can't, so there.
There we are.
But, you brought up the thing about growing up. I was born in LA and grew up there, and always wanted to be into comics. But we had to move to New York, because there was no FedEx or anything. And it was like, you had to be there.
Yeah, I mean, all I got was, when I was showing my work to artists who lived in New York, they all said the same thing. Well, if you lived here, you could probably get work. And that's as far as they would go to commit, And I moved to New York based on that.
And you got
Which in
work.
hindsight was really, really dumb. But it worked out. It took me a long time. But that's the environment that we were in back then. I mean, they didn't have trade schools, like the Cuban school and comic art they have now. It was all learning on your own, and go to maybe a convention and watch somebody draw, and that's how you learn.
Well, I apprenticed on email, but before that, there was these films that I mentioned before, and it was because of Star Wars, there were all these special effects companies popping up, and basically, if you could hold a pencil and draw, good enough, you got the work, and that's how I ended up, working on the first Conan and Star Trek 2 and all this stuff, but, I was a punk kid, didn't know what I was doing either.
Could you imagine being who you were back then now, and trying to get in animation now with the millions of kids that are coming out of trade schools and colleges. It's really hard.
Because you guys didn't technically go that route where,
No.
you know,
No.
a lot of these newer kids are, you know, they're going to school for it, learning, and they've been in school for 5 years and then come out looking for a job where you guys are basically just like, I draw
Yeah.
pictures, like, here we go.
Exactly, exactly. And now, the situation is,
I like comics.
because of
Right.
every single year, there's a new crop that have graduated. Thousands. And this has been going on for what, decades now?
And a lot of
And they're
friends-
teaching them. There's not enough work available for the people that are doing it now. And now we've got a new batch coming in into the field every year.
Well, and
So
it's worldwide.
Yeah, so it's so saturated, it's really, really hard to get into.
Well, are they also like, you know, going to these schools and learning about art? Are you noticing a difference between like hand drawing pictures, inking pictures, to like doing it on tablets and stuff?
It's a different art form, digital art. I'm old school, so I have my preferences. But a tool's a tool. And if you can master the tool and you know the fundamentals, you're gonna have, you know, a professional portfolio. That's the direction that art is going in, is digital and,
Yeah.
you know, new technology. But you still have to know how to draw. The tool can only, you know, help so far.
Yeah.
And there always seem to be a group of people that started very early. Like I got serious when I was like 4 or 5 and stayed with it. And the people that in the profession generally all have that same story. And it's a certain drive that you can't just do it.
Well, since both of you guys have been in it for plus 20 years each,
More than that.
I was trying to be generous. Which artists do you guys look up to? Like, I mean, that even got you like really hyped about being an artist?
Gosh. Well, in comics, you know, Jack Kirby, and I got to work with him at Hanna-Barbera. I mean, at Ruby Spears, part of him later. And then Gil Kane, I got to work with him at Ruby Spears. Also, that was really cool. And Steve Ditko, his fluid storytelling and quirky style, but it was the storytelling, it's how you get a story across to people is most important. And animators like Tex Avery for filmmaking and ways to create a piece of film that is fluid and alive there, or with action and drive, and again, Jack Kirby and Gil Kane.
Basically being able to tell the story with just the art alone, without
Yeah.
the words there, and making it seem like it flows very nicely throughout the pages. Animation.
What he said.
Yeah, you mentioned Jack Kirby. People don't realize, especially today, the old school fans know this, but Jack Kirby was an alien. What he did, when you look at his body of work, nobody will ever come close to that, ever again. The characters that he created and co-created. Stan Lee has made a career out of taking credit for everything. Jack Kirby basically made Marvel Comics. And their working system was Stan Lee would tell Jack Kirby a couple sentences from Fantastic Four story. And then Kirby would go home, write and draw the story, and write dialogue on the sides of the pages, and then bring the story back, and then Stan Lee would fill in the dialogue, and it was written by Stan Lee, drawn by Jack Kirby, and Kirby never got writing credit. And when he finally asked for writing credit, they said no, so he quit, and that's when he went to DC.
Probably the best thing that's ever happened to DC.
Right.
Well, he'd been in DC before.
Yeah.
Was he before him?
Way before.
Yeah. Back in the 40s
No way.
and in the 50s. And he created Challengers of the Unknown.
Yeah, that was
which,
before the Marvel phase,
right.
yeah.
which looks just like the Fantastic Four.
So I wanted, like, as an example, we was working on Fantastic Four, and Stanley came up with the idea of a character called Galactus, where this giant alien eats worlds, and he's gonna come to Earth, and he's gonna eat the Earth, and Fantastic Four has to defeat him. And so Kirby's at home drawing the story, and he's thinking, well, you know, Galactus is gonna come to Earth, he's gotta have a messenger. He wouldn't do it himself, he would send somebody, he'd call this herald. And so Kirby drew this guy on a surfboard. And when Stanley was looking at the pages, he says, who's this guy on the surfboard? He says, that's Galactus' herald, they call him the Silver Surfer. Kirby did that stuff all the time, creating these characters just to make, you know, to fit in the story.
There's more sense of the other
And
characters.
Stan Lee took credit for everything. And the thing about Kirby, his production rate, he averaged 5 pages a day. He drew 7 days a week. And he's the type of artist that he would figure out the compositions in his head. He would finish the drawing in his head, and then take a piece of paper and a pencil and start at one corner, and almost like he was looking at something that had already
Yeah,
been
it's like in
drawn, and start at one corner and draw the page, put it down, start at the next one, like Mozart, you know, creating music in his head without writing any notes. And that's how he was able to produce, you know, that amount of work. And who does that? Nobody can do that.
It's not humanly possible.
No, you know, so that's
He's
why.
an alien.
That's why you talk to comic book artists, most of them will credit Jack Kirby as a reference, as somebody who influenced them. And even if they don't know Kirby, everybody's been influenced by Jack Kirby, so through generations,
You'd see it.
you see.
It's funny because I've now interviewed, countless artists, and almost every single artist will instantly be like Kirby. Kirby's the man. I met with Neil Adams, and I asked him the same question: who's inspired? Jack Kirby. And it's just funny that it's like, how can you be that good? Like, it doesn't make sense.
He's an
Yeah.
alien.
And there's the one thing about Kirby is that he made this stuff up. And when I was a kid trying to learn anatomy, looking at Kirby comics, he would just make up muscles. But it looked cool. I mean, it still looked really cool. He had the knack of making the most mundane scene look interesting and dynamic. And the thing about Kirby is that when I think back about some of the old Fantastic Four stories and Captain America and Thor stories that I used to buy at 7-Eleven when I was a kid, I don't remember the stories that well, but I remember the emotional appeal it had to me, the emotional impact of looking at that stuff as a kid. I don't remember that experience with really any other artist. That emotional appeal that his work had
Ditko.
for me. Ditko had that for me.
Yeah, he did. Some of those early Spider-Man.
You know, so me trying to, you know, as a young artist, trying to learn how to draw, there's a technical side of it, but just the emotional impact of it, I still remember that today. And if I'm reading a reprint, looking at a reprint of some of those old comics, I'll like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then the feeling will come. Like me, 12 years old at 7-Eleven with a Slurpee, like, I remember the feeling. And that's what sticks with me with Jack Kirby, is that feeling that, you know, a comic book brought to me, and to me, that's the magic of comics.
I do want to say, Stan backed off on claiming all the credit, and there was a thing.
That was after the lawsuit.
Yeah. But
Thanks,
there
God's taking.
was, Stan did bring, his writing did bring something that the two of them did together that neither
Absolutely.
one did alone.
Absolutely, yeah. They were
As
better
a team.
together, yes, absolutely. Stan Lee, his dialogue alone. Yeah, absolutely.
And Jack's dialogue was not as
No,
snappy.
like Jack wrote his DC stuff, you know, like the Fourth World New Gods and Commandy and that stuff, and that's his dialogue. And yeah, it does not hold up to what Stanley wrote when he was born.
But now Jack, his name is up there with Stan's on whatever.
Pretty much
project.
everything.
Yeah, because he pretty much did everything.
Yeah, so how do we get on? This isn't.
He asked.
I don't know.
He
Yeah.
did it.
This is actually the Jack Kirby fan club. I think we're getting the 5-minute warning. Does anybody else have any more questions?
I don't know if Gary could talk a bit about you did an inking book. I got it for Christmas in the 90s for my sister. I had known your stuff because I was a fan of Doom Patrol before Grant Morrison messed it up. I was surprised that this book is out of print. Were there any plans to put it out yet?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And I'll slip you a couple of bucks later. I just finished working on the revision of it, updating some of the text and some of the artwork, and we're adding a chapter on digital inking. And Dark Horse is publishing that probably early next year.
Same title?
Yes.
For Gary Martin, did you do any other Marvel comic influence or anything other than Spider-Man or Hulk?
Yes, I did X-Men and Avengers and
Which everything.
Conan and I'm forgetting. For a while there, I was one of their, can you ink these 5 pages in one day kind of guys, you know, can you turn these pages around over the weekend? And so my name is in a lot of comics where I've done just a few pages, like in 3 or 4 in the back kind of thing. Some of those comics have my credit, some don't. And then again, where you use billboards as, you know, you put your name on a street sign or something.
A blimp carrying, or a plane carrying.
Is there like a project you guys have done, like now looking back, that maybe you're like, I kind of wish I hadn't done that?
They were all pages.
Yeah, I mean, that, you're talking about the idea of getting paid to do a hobby. And that's the beginning point, you know, when that dawned on me, when that light bulb went on. I could maybe get paid to do this, but I would do it for free. And when it becomes your living, then there's the fun part and there's the business part. And some jobs, what I used to call them, take the money and run jobs. You don't put your heart into it, it's just a paycheck. And those jobs, I wish I had the time that the job deserved, you know, to put into it. But there's a lot of that stuff that just take the money and run, and you can't do everything that you want to do. You know, we're very lucky that we work in this business, and we are getting paid to do, you know, stuff that we would do anyway for free. People who work every day and do jobs that they hate, that they do for years and years and years, you know, they're the heroes, they really are. They make this world run, and we're not a necessity, we're a luxury. And you guys come here and support us, and we can't thank you enough.
I second that.
Any more questions before we wrap up?
Going once, going,
Oh,
I have another for the X-Men series.
The animated
As
series.
the animated series. How many, like, if a 9 out of 10 were hand-drawn versus computer animated?
They were all done old school. You know, all those X-Men cartoons is all 2D. And I think towards the end they used an Avid for the editing, which was a computer. That was just the beginning.
I think you have a lot more questions, so I invite you to go over to Keith's booth after this and ask him all these questions.
No, go to his meeting.
He's like, I'll be there.
No, I mean, you know,
The only place he's gonna be.
I mean, a lot of things were done on a moviola, you know, where it's, you have a foot pedal and, you know, I test out my animation, like for Star Trek or whatever, or Conan or thing, and just to see if it worked, and, you know, like, oh, if I lose a couple of frames here, add a couple more frames here, I can get some more motion that's more fluid, that's kind of like I want things to flow. And when you're animating and some things go faster and then they're slower, you know, faster at the end. I remember working with Peter Duran, he was looking at my stuff, you know, we're flipping the pages, and he was like, that's all good, we can just toss these out and shoot it this way. And it's like, yeah, you learn to make it work. But yeah, it was fun. Still is. But back then was a wild time.
Well, I'm getting the nod that we're getting cut off. But thank you guys very
Yeah,
much
thanks
for
for
joining
coming.
us. Thank you for being here. And thank you guys. Thank you guys. You know where to find me. I'll be right there.